exhortation, and admonishment for us to enter the body. So in the initial verse, instructing and guiding to do good deeds is exhortation. That means urging us to do good. Stopping the practicing of evil is admonishment. Again, it's urging us to stop doing evil. And if you may recall that the Buddha Dharma, if one were to summarize in 3 short lines, it's stop doing evil, do only good, and that being to purify the mind, of course, through the teachings. So this is where the Tathagata's teaching is none other than this. So then we have the Tripitaka, which is the Sutra treasury, which is considered exhortation to practice that is good. And that is the teaching. The Vinaya treasury, which is the Vinaya rules, is considered admonishment to prevent all evil. Then the Abhidhamma treasury discuss how to practice and verify the Dhamma. So this is about doing good, then stop doing evil. This is about Abhidhamma, applying the principles, purify the mind. So 3 important lines. And this is also known as three baskets. The 3 baskets are described as the Tripitaka, and that's what it is. So it's a sutra. As you all know what is a sutra. This is words from Ananda recorded from the teachings of the Buddha. That's the sutra. Vinaya, the rules. So sutra have been written by Ananda. Vinaya, this is documented by Upala, who is one of the 10 foremost disciples. And you may recall that Upala was from the low castes, and he was actually a barber. And obviously then the princess who then joined the Sangha community had problem having to bow to him, and that's Upala. And Abhidhamma, who is the foremost in Abhidhamma, as you recall, and this is about the doctrines of the teachings. And I think you can relate that masters speak a lot in terms of using the term principles, and so that's Abhidhamma. And the one who is foremost in this is actually Kachayana, one of the 4 great disciples. So the 4 great disciples, just to recap: Subhuti, foremost in emptiness; Kachayana, foremost in Abhidhamma, or the doctrines, or the principles, if you like. And this comes from the sutra. Then Moggallana, which is foremost in psychic ability, and the Mahakasyapa, which is foremost in asceticism. So these are the 4 great disciples. So sutras are the exhortations, which is to do good, that teach us and guides to do good deeds. And Vinaya, treasury, is considered admonishment, preventing us from committing evil. So this, when we put into some situation, giving rise to improper thoughts, then so we need to abandon those thoughts with the right efforts. The Abhidhamma treasury explains and discuss how to practice. And what is this practice about? Achieve realization of the Dhamma through purity of the mind, or clarity of the mind. So after people talk it, they analyze and experience it and discuss. So this part, that but analyzing it, is about us also reflecting upon ourselves. So why do we reflect on ourselves? Why do we reflect upon ourselves? So that we can purify ourselves. We know what to purify. Experience it, that means you apply the Dharma in our life. And then we discuss, which is what we are doing now in terms of sharing. So entering the Bodhi path is to attain great enlightenment, not limited enlightenment, and also bring sentient beings to fruition. So not limited enlightenment, meaning not just in a small vehicle, but also to bring sentient beings to fruition, which is a bodhisattva path. That means it's not limited to the small vehicle, but growing a great vehicle. And this is the bodhisattva path. So this whole episode today is about what this is. stop doing evil, do only good, and purify the mind. So although they have previous fourth great aspiration, referring to the four great disciples, and even for us, the lack of conditions and mature capability that cast them aside and forgotten them. So you remember in the previous episode, Master said one would have gone through in the past through past cultivation, through past of practices. We may have taken the great aspiration, and also Master mentioned about the 20,000 sun, moon lamp Buddhas. Even during the time of the Buddha, one would have taken those great aspiration. But because of the lack of conditions or mature capabilities on our side, we then therefore cast them aside, or we were not firm in those aspirational vows. So that is the reason also why that in the 10 grounds of bodhisattvahood, I think if I'm not mistaken, the 10 perfections up to you reach to level perfection of aspiration. That is where it's not retreating. So we don't know, as we uphold this aspiration, we may also uphold those this aspiration in the past. And so that's the reason why I said in many episodes ago, talk about having the Dharma seal in our heart and getting into our practice into the mind continuum, and that is the reason why it become non-retreating. So these disciples were still not replete with an abundance of Dharma, nor knowledge of the matters of samsara. And the knowledge, why Master mentioned about the matters of samsara? That is because for the small bigger practitioners, they talk about self-enlightenment, right? Enlightenment themselves and don't want to return back anymore. So that's the reason why in the stages of enlightenment of the arahathood, when you reach the state of non-returner and become the rich arahathood, that is anagami. So, but in the bodhisattva path, it's talk about returning to the shores of samsara. What's the main concern? The main concern is if one have already, imagine now, if one have already cleared all one's affliction and defilements, one has already purified the mind. And coming back to samsara to face all the conditions again, the fear is obviously going to get contaminated again. And that's what this not replete with abundance of the Dharma. And then how can one get into that unconditioned practice and no longer afflicted by the defilements of others? So they have not yet realized that they are interconnected with living beings in the world. What I mean by interconnected with living beings in the world is to have that condition to be totally purified into the state of unconditioned practice, then realizing that true emptiness in the wondrous existence, that one is no longer afflicted. Thus, they lack maturity in the condition and capabilities. That's what Master meant by this. So people like this see afflictions as grievances and samsara as suffering. So see afflictions as grievances, mostly because when it's fearful, then coming back to samsara and face those afflictions, and samsara is suffering. But when one in the unconditioned practice, that doesn't apply. So that means one is able to remain in stillness and firmly rooted without being afflicted, and then at the same time helping sentient beings. So exaltation and admonishment are two doors that the Buddha has opened wide for us. Stopping evil, practicing good deeds, for his admonishment and exaltation. So just to recap, door admonishment is to teach not to break. So for us in our practice, right, for householders, we don't have Vinaya rules. So what is our door admonishment? Our precepts. So we undertake the precepts, and then how to eliminate affliction, so that we undertake this precept to not break those precepts, right? And so in Sati we have 10 of them, and And obviously, the exercise that we can do later is to look at what are the afflictions that we need to understand so that we don't break those precepts. So it's easy to say that we have 5 precepts or nothing, or 10 in us. But what else are there? What are the related things that can trap us? So this is why what we are doing on Fridays. So how to go among people without being contaminated so that our mind is the body power. And that is what for us so that we do not deviate in our practice. So in contemplation, enter the practice with courage to ascend with the life teachings to grow in higher and newer learnings from life becomings. Why do we need courage? We see I think especially those, I think if you're younger and you're working, you'll be facing a lot of challenges in your work and with your householders. I still remember when I was then I was in my 20s, I qualified, came back, and actually at the time, I mean, when you're in the accounting profession then, and also even now, if you were to leave and you go to work, you get double the pay, practically get double the pay. But I never did because for some reason, I remained in the profession because I thought that was so-called a cleaner way of living, that I can choose not to get engaged in so-called creative accounting. So I asked my contemporaries who left, and this is what they told me. They said, we work our guts out in the accounting firm, long hours. Obviously, it's very hard work. But then they say that when they're outside, although they get double the pay, there's less hours. But he told me something. He said, it's a different type of pressure. You don't get the quantity pressure in terms of hours, but you get the quality pressure because you have been asked to sign things. Because being head of finance, there are a lot of things you have to do in structure. So to withstand that, you need courage. Courage. Sometimes you have to stand up to the truth. You have to stand alone, and that requires a lot of courage. And beyond, and so higher new learnings from life becomes, and beyond, into the mind continuum until there is no more learning. So into the mind continuum until there's no more learning. This is part when you attain supreme enlightenment. And why into the mind continuum? Back to the point that I shared earlier, is of upholding that aspiration and without retreating. So there's so much to learn in this life, and much more in the future lives. But if we don't uphold that aspirational vow and get dissipated as a result, we never know whether we still have those conditions and the teachings so that we can continue. So walk the path steadfastly to ascend into the mind continuum. Have the courage to face yourself to change. And the courage to face yourself to change, as a few days ago, I mentioned about Brother Robert's name, being a soldier, which is being a spiritual warrior. Spiritual warrior, not to conquer others, but conquer yourself. And that's the courage, so that we can change. So that we die with a better you than the one you were born with. And that's what we want you to be. At the end of the day, a better you means a change of character. You've changed. So on relationship, a good relationship, the progress in the practice in each life, one must continue with a firmer footing. We continue with a firmer footing. It means you in this this life that we are in practice was better than a firmer footing than what we had in the past life. And so we plan a firmer footing in this life so that we have a firmer ground of practice in the next life. Each life must end with a more refined good character, which is referring to what was mentioned earlier, because it's from the good character you can grow in good relationship. So the foundation of the good character is to enable you to accumulate the teachings with higher learnings in this life of learning and growth. So if one doesn't uphold that foundation of good character, there will be a lot of complaints in our life. A lot of complaints in life, how can that really be in practice? If there's anything to complain in life, it's to complain about our own self, not complaining about matters, not complaining about things, or not complaining about others, but reflecting upon ourselves, to analyze ourselves. So this is a state of progress in the path of accumulation. So in the path of accumulation, that way we can accumulate good deeds, which is what is through the law of exaltation. And also we prevent what is evil from coming into us. So enter the path, striving in purity to seek and merge with the truth. And this is what these two doors are meant to do for us. Okay. Canon brothers and sisters.
We just can't thank enough BrotherChin for the wonderful share.